And when Edgar Broughton came back in 2009, I thought they were much better than they ever were in the early days. It was like fine wine. They'd sort of really developed into a fantastic band. You know? Extraordinary night that was, that 2009 40th anniversary. You know, where we found 3 bands that were touring in 1969. It was 40 years since we started Friars, so I set out to find 3 bands that were still touring 40 years later. I mean, that's 2 lifetimes in old money. And we found the Pretty Things, we found the Groundhogs, and we found Edgar Broughton.
Welcome to Friars Aylesbury. It's been 25 years, I think, since I said that, and it's fantastic to be with you guys tonight. This band saved Friars on 2 occasions, and they're very, very special to the history of Friars Aylesbury. I want you to give them a very, very warm welcome, please. Can we hear a warm Friars Aylesbury welcome? The Groundhogs.
But yeah, I always liked Friars, you know, wherever it was here and in Bedford, you know. David used to do a good gig. This is a great place anyway. Friars, well, it's one of the best, yeah.
It's the heart of the thing. Survive. People get older, wrinkly, some new ones come along in the interim, but I guess the heart of the thing survives, and then it's fairly easy to put it back together. Well, I say that, I don't know what Dave's been through, but, you know, relatively it must be, because it was such a good thing.
For one thing, it became the name of this area, the whole scene. For another thing, they put on good adventurous music. They didn't mind having it loud, and they didn't mind people jamming, so hey.
Friars Aylesbury definitely had that club atmosphere, the camaraderie. So many people knew one another. It was good to see people that you hadn't seen. In the old days, you hadn't seen them for perhaps a fortnight. But all of a sudden, you were meeting people you hadn't seen for 20 odd years. And it was as if it wasn't 20 years, it was as if it was yesterday.
You have no idea how good it feels to say this. Good evening, Aylesbury.
I always, you know, felt a great affinity with Friars, and as I say, not only the history of the group, but the formation of the group was kind of steeped in all Friars history.
Tour back in the day, Friars was always one of the best ones on the tour, you know. So we had good memories of it.
Keeps using the word atmosphere, but it has to be seen to be believed, the Friars atmosphere. And I saw a lot of concerts in other theatres, both standing and seating, but the Friars has a life of its own. It's just completely different.
Can we have a very, very warm Friars Aylesbury welcome? China Crisis.
Well, the audience are fantastic. You know, over the last few years, the audience kind of grown with us, and you know, I think it's mutual respect. It's an honour to be back. It's always an honour to play, you know, where you started off. I mean, they were great years for us. They were really good years for us.
This says Friars Heroes Award, Kick Your Own Buckness, presented the Friars Aylesbury 40th anniversary gig. I am honored to be here. Thank you so much for still believing in the power of music. Thank you so much.
Stop!
felt very sort of attached to it. So when I heard it was closing down, I remember ringing David Stopps and saying, look, you know, I really want to do the last gig there, even if I've got to pay for it. You know, I really like to do the last gig there. And David was up for it, but then I think he got an offer to do Paul Weller, and suggested that we'll do that together, which was brilliant because it actually meant it was going to be absolutely packed, and it did mean that the last gig at the Civic Centre was going to be an absolute corker, which it, you know, seriously turned out to be.
Queues to get tickets beforehand. We worked the queues from 8 o'clock in the morning, giving people slips of paper to make sure they got tickets through to the actual concert. And just before the concert, I had a phone call from Mark Adams, who is David Bowie's webmaster, to say, would I kindly go and ask Paul Weller if he'd wear a David Bowie badge on stage that night. So I went home, got one of my David Bowie badges, went backstage and asked Paul Weller, and he said he would be extremely proud to wear a David Bowie badge.
For the very last time, can we have a wonderful Friars Aylesbury welcome, Paul Weller.
Thank you very much, good evening. Very nice to be on this very sad but very auspicious occasion as well. Some lovely times here in the past, and I'm going to have a lovely time here tonight as well.
I think what made Friars are the people, so you still got that buzz. And that's what makes it. So yes, in those terms, I do think it's a shame we lost the Civic Centre. It wasn't anything special, it wasn't anything flash, but it served its purpose.
Welcome to Friars Aylesbury Phase 4. The band that are about to take the stage are unique in my view. Nick Cash, the singer, used to live in Wingrave and was in Kilburn and the High Roads with Ian Jury. We'll never forget the gig he played in 1979 where there was a lot of people outside who couldn't get in, and he went outside the Civic Centre and played for the people that couldn't get in with a little amp and a guitar. That's the sort of guy he is. Okay, can we have a very, very warm Friars Aylesbury Phase 4 welcome? 999.
I played here with Ian Jury, with Commander Cody and the Lost Planet Airmen.
You did, back in 1973, yeah.
I remember it.
Well, I'm not sure, I think it's the third or the fourth time tonight, so yeah, we've done it from 79 or something till now, so it's quite a while. 76 it was, 76.
I deal in poetry, music and rock and roll, you know, and that's been the business of Buzzcocks. That's the secret of lasting 35 years, you know, the genuine reality.
Yeah, we came to the Waterside to see the Buzzcocks. That was a great gig, and wonderful also to see Eddie and the Hot Rods.
I've just recently moved back to Aylesbury from living in Devon for 20 years, and I've come back just as Friars is starting at the Waterside Theatre.
Can we have a very, very warm Friars Aylesbury welcome? Wilco Johnson.
Aylesbury, Friars.
Friars Aylesbury.
Different places every time you see it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brand new, this one. It is it's sprung on us. We're a little bit, you know, nervous in these new surroundings. I can smell the paint.
After 45 years of involvement, very biased, because when I go to those gigs, I bump into loads of people from Friars Phase 1. I meet, you know, you see everybody, you know, from those days because they all want to come back to Friars again. So for me, it's wonderful and it's carrying on the legacy and it feels the same. But obviously there's hundreds of much younger people than me coming in, going to Friars for the first time. I don't know how they see it, but say from a personal point of view, it's like I step back and I'm back in there again and it feels exactly the same. Dave's there, Robin, Adrian, Jerry, and countless other people that say, how are you doing, mate? And I say, yeah, remember this gig? And it all comes flooding back.
I reckon the first time I came to Friars would have been as a client in July '69. I would have seen King Crimson. Absolutely. And I think Andy Dunkley would have been doing the DJing.
Yes, he would.
Okay. And because Andy's just left us, hasn't he? So,
sadly.
As he'd done a lot of Friars and a lot of Hawkwind gigs as well. Now I haven't hit the bottle yet, but you can pour me a glass.
Yeah, I think I hold the record for playing Friars the most times of anybody. I think 17 times I think I played there, which is great. I mean, it'd be hard to see how you could sort of like kick off a career without Friars, without somewhere to actually sort of, you know, use it as a step up. I know my parents came from up north in near Barrie in Furness in the Lake District, and I've always thought, if I'd have been brought there, how the hell do you get a career out of it? How do you get your career going? And I mean, the way it works is, well, I mean, I suppose the answer would have been to move down to Aylesbury and get a gig of Friars.
Friars Phase 4, for me, watching the last couple of gigs I've been to, Steve Hackett and the Specials, say, was pretty much, the audience reaction was pretty much like it was when the Specials first played there, and it's pretty much like it was when Steve Hackett played with in the Genesis days. Totally different audiences, but yeah, reproduced pretty much, if not even more so with the Specials.
Very much.
We left Coventry on that first day of the Clash tour, the Coventry Automatics, and by the time we got to Aylesbury, we were the Specials.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. That's right.
And here we were.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a fortuitous evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did 2013 fare compared to all those years ago?
I think perhaps 1978 was seat of your pants, pure terror. But this was great. This was a lot of fun. This was lovely. I really enjoyed this evening.
Look.
It had a sort of feel to it. Didn't matter where it was because it moved around, as you know. But it had a sort of an atmosphere. You felt the audience was sort of part of something collective, which is nice. And excited about it being a Friars gig. Obviously, it meant that Friars gigs had to always be good. And luckily, with that old Dave stops, they normally were. But in fact, it had something very special about it. Obviously, for us, it kept us going through the dark times when no one really liked us that much in the country. But it had an atmosphere. I know every show we did there, we looked forward to very much. But the crowd had a kind of unity. Firstly, because it was a Friars gig, and secondly, because they knew there was good stuff going to be on stage. That's the thing, actually. They often probably came without knowing who was on stage. They knew it'd always be a good... I suppose the Friars reputation meant that anyone coming to a Friars show knew it would be a good evening of music.
Thank you.
It's great to be back in Aylesbury. Thank you, Mr. David Stopps. It's kind of where it all started, so luckily it didn't stop there. Bad joke, no. Thank you so much.
I think the Waterside is a lovely venue, acoustically, and from looking out across the stage, it just looks fantastic. I played there a couple of times the previous months, once with Steve Hackett, so I kind of knew what to expect.
I always think the audience is the true owner of the material. The people who wrote it always abandon it, or at least for a while, and yeah, the listener is the true owner. The audience is the true owner. So this is entirely designed to please this kind of show.
The Marillion gig in 2013 was astonishing. Not only because it was the local boys coming home, it was the fact that I don't think I've ever seen an audience that size so reverential. And talking to people on the night, they had come from all over the UK and Europe and beyond because it was Marillion in Aylesbury. It was just incredible. The atmosphere and the love in the room was like nothing I've seen. And I've never, ever seen the bars empty like they were. I've never seen the bars at a sold-out gig empty like they were at that Marillion gig. It was incredible.
The most recent one I've done is the Waterside gig, actually, which is now Friars has now moved on to the new theatre, which is fantastic, actually, and it's a great theatre to play. And it was a lovely, it was a lovely event.
But again, I think it has a resonance with the band and with our audience. It makes it something more than just another concert. It's almost like a celebration of the band and a celebration of the history and tradition of Friars itself. So yeah, it was quite magical.
Played Friars 8 times in the past. Starting in 1981 as a very small support band. There's been a little bit of a gap between the 8th and the 9th gig, a little intermission of 29 years. And it's a huge honour to welcome them back to the Friars Aylesbury stage. This band came from Aylesbury and now they're back at Friars. Thank you very much for coming.
Friars was a completely different venue to probably anything else in the country. There was a couple of other places that were key in breaking bands. I mean, it was such a different world in those days. I mean, it was before the internet and things.
I think it's the audience was something special, and whether sort of people here were more receptive than in other towns, I really don't know. But anything that sort of came along seemed to get embraced.
I mean, Friars was a social event. At the end of the day, it didn't really matter who was actually playing, who was appearing. We went because you knew that you would meet all your friends, and especially in phase 3, we used to go to the Civic Centre, and we would always stand at the top of the stairs, and from there you would see everyone coming in, you'd meet all your friends, and it was just a social gathering. It didn't, sometimes, never even set foot inside the hall to see the band.
The most important thing about Friars to me was that it was definitely a social night out with my best friend, Lynn, at the time. It was also a little bit naughty in inverted commas. Nothing naughty went on, but I know my parents didn't know where I was going. But of course it was always so completely safe, which was something what I really loved about Friars.
Yeah, Capability Brown, string-driven thing. They were all big in Aylesbury, but not necessarily anywhere else.
That's right. I remember Split Ends was a case in point too, where we headlined Split Ends before anybody else did, because the Aylesbury had really attached themselves to Andy Farrow the Low. It's another example where
of course.
I remember him coming off stage, or a member of his band coming off stage at that last gig, said, well, we're big in Aylesbury anyway.
And I came back to Aylesbury with my sons, and I really wish that they had had something like Friars when they were growing up in Aylesbury. The only problem is I would have been there too, as their mum. Which I don't think they would have wanted somehow.
It was always a welcoming club. And having experienced some of the shove them in, treat them like cash cow clubs in London, Friars had a much more welcoming, positive approach. You felt that you were members and not just punters.
It was my life. Absolutely. I mean, it was Friars. Music was my scene, still is. I listen to Planet Rock every day, and I just love rock music. And Friars did it. It had everything you could dream of.
I look at the list of all the bands now, and I see what was on, and think what I missed when I was away at college. And it was special coming back for that. And I just think that we were really, really privileged to have that, you know, so close by. I know we didn't need to go to London.
It's just the enjoyment of the music and the bands at the time, and the comradeship of your friends there. That you can't whack it. It's unique to Friars.
It was the best club in the world, basically. We've been all over the country, from the Hacienda to the Marquee, Music Machine, everywhere we went, and there was nothing with the vibe like Friars had.
Having something like Friars in your hometown when you want to be a musician was very inspirational, because it allowed you to see what people were doing. It allowed you to see, you know, where you needed to be and what you needed to do.
The key taste-making place was definitely Friars, because the other thing as well, if you were very lucky, you could usually inveigle a melody maker or a sounds, or those sort of people who are so important then to come up to Aylesbury, where they wouldn't go to Dumfries or Inniskillen or somewhere like that. So, and then of course as Friars got bigger and more established as a venue, there was the likes of Chris Needs and people up there and various stringers who would report back. So if you didn't have a journalist going up there with you to see the band, you prayed that one of those people liked them and would feed something into the papers.
People have to go to sort of Download or one of those sort of festivals to see what we had on our doorstep. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But what was great about it really, and what was, David and the team around him who selected the bands to play and just seemed to get it right year after year after year, and that's an amazing success rate, really.
The audience seemed to be very open-minded. There seemed to be a genuine love of music, and it made it unique in all the places that you tour around the UK.
And of course David was always very generous with the money, so we never had any arguments about oh, money is much or anything.
Business-wise, I wasn't very good at all. I didn't. We just booked the bands we liked and see how much we could pay for them. The less the better, sort of thing. But it was, so it wasn't very financially successful. But very, very magical period that was.
I think the first thing you need is to know what you're doing. And we did know what we were doing. David and I, Jerry and Adrian and Terry knew the music very well. You have to have a lot of commitment and energy, which David has. And you have to be quite tough, because there has been a lot of hostility to Friars over the years. And in some cases, some quarters around this town, there is still hostility. But you've got to stand up to that, and you've got to make it work. And that, really, is how we brought the music to Aylesbury.
If you think about it, I mean, David Stopps has got a lot to answer for. All his parents that wanted their kids, to get sensible jobs. And thanks to David Stopps, I mean, they haven't done a sensible day's work.